Hey guys, welcome to book review number 44. Sorry for that unpleasantness, I want to make sure it was recording. Catfish and Mandela. A 2-week voyage through the landscape and memory of Vietnam by Andrew Pham. So what this book was Andrew was kind of a was, I guess at this time period, was kind of a floating individual, directionless, but still a intellectual, somebody that was curious about life. And so he decided to explore his family's roots in Vietnam, actually being born in Vietnam and moving to the United States when he was 10. So in order to do so, he decided to take a bicycle journey, kind of in small segments around the Pacific Rim. The primary source, though, being in Vietnam. That's really where most of this book, kind of in the present, as it was being explored, took place. But also extensively, Andrew Pham talked about his family's history and the struggles and kind of personal history that they went through, being a first generation immigrants from Vietnam. And not only that, they didn't exactly just get on a plane in the 70s or when the war was going on, and fly to America and have that be it. He also talked extensively about the struggles that happened during that time period. And it kind of interlaces. What's really good about the book is that he interlaces the two. So just when you think you've had enough of kind of this very vivid but kind of stark history of the family, both in their immigration process and what it was like for them once they arrived in the United States, being new immigrants, not knowing English, new immigrants, not knowing English, or, completely foreign to the customs of the United States. People often talk about if a Westerner goes to Asia, it's like landing on Mars, but the reverse is equally true of Asians, Vietnamese, Chinese, whatever, who have had little or no contact with the West, particularly 20, 30, 40 years ago, and then suddenly moving to the United States and having this complete crazy experience. Andrew mentions in the book, I think he has 3 brothers and 2 sisters. One, the very eldest sister, and then the baby sister, and then it's all the boys in between. And what he talks about extensively is, Chi, I think was her name. Yeah. Chi is the eldest sister, and she actually passed away. In a kind of a sad situation. She was the one that was sort of, I guess you'd say, most Vietnamese, because she was the eldest when they moved out of the country. And when she came to the United States, she finished high school but never really fit in. But then kind of became directionless, but not directionless in a safe way, in a very dangerous way. Kind of not being in contact with her family for years on end. I don't know if she got into drugs or not, but basically just like rolling with the wrong crowd, and also having identity problems, that primarily being gender identity problems. I shouldn't even call it problems. Gender identity issues, where she really felt she was a man trapped in a woman's body, and actually had surgery later on in her life. And about a year after she came back and kind of had contact with the family, she wound up killing herself. Well, he, I guess at this point. She. wound up killing herself by hanging herself. So obviously that was very emotional and very heavy-hearted. It's acknowledged early in the book that she committed suicide, so you know that it's going to happen. But kind of the slow build to it over the course of the history of the family is very kind of engrossing. This is a very good book. But kind of to mirror that, Andrew talks about his journey through Vietnam. Now, it's certainly no walk in the park, but the very idea of travel or adventure is new horizons, things opening up, not things closing down. He mentions the street that he grew up on in Hanoi and how everything had changed, though not necessarily for the better, but like it was just sort of kind of a parallel change. And it's almost like communism had an effect on Vietnam in the way people were organized, the struggles people went through, those in power lost power, those who were Viet Cong or whatever came into power. But Vietnam just kind of churns along no matter the political system it has. So although things changed, it was kind of a parallel change, and the people kind of remained the same. Still sort of, definitely some grinding poverty that was extensively mentioned in the book. And actually one of the more harrowing things that was mentioned in the book was, you and I get Coke every day, or if you're a soda drinker, not cocaine. Coke is in Coca-Cola or Pepsi every day, and think almost nothing of it. But when he was driving through the rural area of Vietnam, kind of a luxury that every small mom and pop restaurant, and there's just oogles of them in Vietnam, just places that are just the front of people's houses, storefronts, where they just cook some food for you and you pay for it. But one of the luxuries that many of these restaurants have is they'll have Coca-Cola, but a Coca-Cola, a real Coca-Cola, like Coke, with the label and trademark and everything, costs about a week's salary, or maybe it's a few days' salary. But I mean, you think of the equivalent of like what that would be in the West. A couple days' salary is, I don't know, not quite a new computer, maybe maybe like a new computer or a new iPhone or something like that. But just because of the disparity, it's a luxury item there. Now that being said, food is extremely cheap, and people could get rice wine. Alcohol was cheaper than, whatever. But anyway, that's the side story about the Coke. I just really thought it was interesting. Oh, and he said that he met some bad guys in one of these places in order to kind of show them up, kind of like you would show somebody up at the club by dropping a $1,000 on $1,000 on like a bottle of Dom Perignon or something. These guys showed him up that us Vietnamese that stayed in the country are better than you Viet Cong or foreign Vietnamese people by buying that Coke and just in your face. What else? One of the things that I like is when he kind of mentions a lot of the hotels. Really, what was good about a lot of the travel stuff was it wasn't like there was an overarching theme like there was with the family. The grind, the immigration. I can talk about that in a little bit. But really, there was more like snapshots, like the kid who had no parents and apparently no home, though they didn't know they didn't have a home, but he would always just kind of show up and disappear at random among these masses of people in Hanoi. This is in the city of Hanoi. And he would show them around, these backpackers around with people from Sweden, Europe, who were doing the cheap thing in Asia, probably took the Trans-Siberian Railroad over. He would just show them around and wouldn't really say a whole lot about himself, but would just kind of like take them to the cool spots, kind of not the well-known spots, but the little kind of niches or back alley places that were really cool in the city, which obviously a traveler wouldn't know about. It was almost a little bit like having a Lonely Planet guide there for you. It was pretty crazy. And then, he talks about some of his family, not his immediate family, but his more extended family that stayed in country, and how he met them, how there were similarities and differences. He talks about how he met, I actually had my own problem with prostitution. I don't know. I'm going to look bad here. Recently. And at the same time that I was thinking about this in my life, Andrew actually had a rendezvous with a hooker in somewhere, not Nha Trang, one of the beach communities that's on the east coast of Vietnam and is well known for its white sand beaches. He said he had a beach house that looked out like it was maybe 15 feet up and just looked out directly over the ocean, over this wide expanse of beach, and there was headlands off in the horizon. And every day he'd see the local fishermen, a lot of them being women, wading out into the shallows to either catch fish or collect like shellfish, like clams and stuff. And it was very panoramic, very scenic. He mentions kind of all the people, like the guy that, he's very broke because this is his first book and he doesn't really have like a steady job. So he mentions how he always is short on cash, and he mentions how he wasn't able to afford the foreigner. I'm going to take a little bite here. Foreigner food. For taking a train from Hanoi from Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City, up to Hanoi. And he mentioned how this was very upsetting, and the officialdom really locked down on him and saw him as foreigner, communism. But the other side of it is that he met kind of a little lower official who snuck him in on a cargo train on the very back and just let him go up to Hanoi for almost nothing, for like a few dollars in the back of this train. And he said that was one of the advantages of being a Viet Cong versus being a true Westerner is the Vietnamese would try to screw over the Viet Cong, but there was at least some room for angling there where, I would never be able to. Andrew also knew Vietnamese, of course. I would never be able to do that just because, one, I don't know Vietnamese, and two, I would be even less trusted than Andrew would be, but because he's somewhat kin, they trusted him. He talks about kind of, like I said, the grinding poverty, but also the grinding spirit. I mentioned he was broke. He talks about this girl that he saw that, was selling like some trinket, as all impoverished tourist areas of the world will, if you're, Mexico or Senegal or Vietnam or wherever. And he felt so sorry for her that he took all of the money he had in his pocket at the time. Now, that's not all the money he had, but all the money he had in his pocket at the time, which was, I think, like $40 or $50 or something, and gave it directly to her, which is like, I don't know, probably, well, not even salary, because salary, I don't know. It would be maybe like a month's worth salary at the time in Vietnam, but this girl was clearly not making salary. She was begging, so tears welled in her eyes, and she got very emotional. It was just a very sweet but bittersweet moment of this girl that she gave it to. Like I said, there's 1,000 kind of snapshot incident stories that happened in the traveling part of the book. I should briefly mention, I said they kind of went around the Pacific Rim. He also briefly was in Japan and in like the northwest coast of the United States, so from like San Francisco to Vancouver, or maybe it was Seattle. And he mentioned some of the nutcases out on the west coast and kind of the rigidity of the Japanese system, and how there were like no hotels, or like everything just seemed very closed off. Like people would help him out, but for the most part, it was almost like there was nobody there, like just in their own world. Very Japanese for you. That's the Japanese. Like I said, the kookiness of the West Coast and all the crazy characters out there. But the majority of it takes place in Vietnam. But to get back to the story, I guess the main thing that he talks about when they come to the United States is his sister Chi. But he also talks about other stuff, you know, like how all the immigrants in school when he was in high school, all the, not immigrants, all the ethnic groups kind of clumped together. The black kids, the Latinos, the Vietnamese, and they all fight each other and miss school, but then the parents would get real mad and tell them to go back to school. And then it also talks about kind of, if you predate that a little bit, how they got out of there, which is just absolutely insane. This family was a boat family, which means they didn't get a plane out of Vietnam. They didn't get a big cruise liner out of Vietnam. They didn't walk out of Vietnam via like Cambodia. They took a rickety old, like, essentially what would be like a speedboat, or maybe a glorified speedboat, from the southeast coast of Vietnam, so like on the very tip, all the way across the Gulf of Thailand to Malaysia. And they said they actually didn't make it all the way, and were going to run out of fuel and the boat was going to sink, or, you know, they were going to die. But they come across some Indonesian, I think it was Indonesian cargo ship that picked them up in distress. And he actually mentioned that there was a French ship that they saw too that passed literally like right next to him within like 10 feet. French ship didn't stop. Man, those cold-hearted French, they let them have it. Yeah, and then he talks about how harrowing that was both before and after how harrowing the boat journey was, because if they got caught, they were all going to go to jail. The possibility that the father would be executed. And they kind of talked about how he was in an internment camp in Indonesia for like 6 months or a year or something. And a guy actually blew his head out at this internment camp because his papers didn't come through. Yeah, that was crazy. Man, it's such a good book. I could go on about this forever. But he also talks, the last thing I'll say is he talks about his dad and the struggles his dad had in Vietnam, because his dad, it was known that he was a soldier of the South Vietnamese Army, which were the capitalists, the non-communists, the American backside. But what wasn't known was that he was like the top PR propaganda man for recruiting for the entire South Vietnamese Army. And if anyone ever knew that, he would have been shot in the back of the head. So he was interned in this camp and kind of woke every day with the hope that his secret wouldn't get out. And I'll leave you with this. It's kind of a disgusting note, but I don't know. This is a very vivid book. It's a very emo book, but very deservingly emo book because of the harsh matter it covers. You know, also kind of bittersweet. He talks about some of the joys, but just very kind of, it gets you. It's not, okay, I'll say this, and then I'll say the father thing, and then I'll be done. It's not a book where some person from another country or another ethnic background comes in and coyly or just kind of dispassionately says what they think, makes a few statistical observations. No, I mean, he is Vietnamese. He lived this. I mean, it's crazy. Like, it's crazy how attached the writing is to the author and how attached the reader becomes to the book because of the heart that it really has in it. The last thing I was going to say about this book was about the father in the internment camp, and actually the reason it's called Catfish and Mandela, well, at least Catfish. You know, he was interned in internment camp, horrid conditions, no mercy, slept wood floor. I think they might have given like threadbare blankets out to some of this is the father, Andrew's father, out to some of the people that were in this camp. in like the late 70s after the Vietnam War ended. But the reason that the Catfish is the title is because what they would actually do is they'd have a latrine, and the latrine would be a pier or dock out over a small pond, and you'd go and there'd be a little outhouse, and you'd shit in the and it'd just be a hole, and you shit in it, and it would go down into the pond, and the catfish in the pond would eat it. And then that would happen in the morning or throughout the day. But then at night, the source of protein that the Vietnamese army, North Vietnamese army, gave these people in this re-education camp, in this internment camp, was they go to the other side of the lake, catch some catfish, grill that catfish up. This is the same lake that had a latrine on the other end, and the catfish that ate that shit, literally, that ate the shit after you shit it out of your body. The North Vietnamese would go to the other side, catch the catfish, grill it up for dinner, and serve it to rice to the inmates. So, that's grisly. But anyway, yeah, I guess special shout out to Chi. You know, that's kind of a sad situation how she died. But this is an incredible, incredible book. He also says something about the other brothers and sisters too. Incredible, incredible book. He really gets into it. It's got the heart. It's almost, if you want a favorable comparison, I think I can go ahead and say this. Maybe what Dreams of My Father was to a traveling African American experience. This book is to traveling Vietnamese American experience. So, comparison to Barack Obama, yeah, I think it's well founded. I mean, he really delves well into the issues, as well as, you know, being lighthearted, humorous, but really, really getting in there and getting it. Okay, Catfish and Mandela, a two-wheeled voyage through the landscape in memory of Vietnam by Andrew X. Pham.